Hey everybody, Nick Livingston with this week's Honeit podcast. Excited to introduce you to Darren Hendricks. Darren is an amazing recruiter and talent partner. He's a senior TA specialist at TDECU, a really amazing credit union based in Houston, Texas. And Darren has been one of the most innovative recruiters we've worked with using Honeit, kind of pushing it to its limits. And I'm really excited to talk with Darren about, how he's going above and beyond typical TA and recruitment to really give more insight and value to candidates, created a wonderful experience for them, but also deliver more value and time savings to hiring teams. So, Darren, welcome to the podcast.
Yep. Glad to be here. I appreciate everything and you guys bringing me to the podcast.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know you've been in this business for some time. I know you started kind of in staffing before moving into corporate recruiting, which I think gives a good perspective, and you learn a lot from kind of working in both places. Maybe tell us a little bit more about how did Darren get into recruitment and a little bit more about that story.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. So I'll try to summarize it, but basically, I started off in client services with Dean's Professional Services, and I owe a lot of my career to Jennifer Dean. She's been in the industry for a while, and I worked directly under her in our client services department, kind of, how do you say, soliciting physicians and soliciting doctors' offices to add roles to our team. Was doing a pretty good job at it. And then I also started in the process talking to people as well to actually recruit for my own roles in conjunction with staffing. So I was referring people as I met people kind of out. And Jennifer asked me, hey, do you mind doing recruiting? Have you ever thought about it? And I was kind of like, I guess, yes. You have to teach me what to do, no problem. And so I did that, and that started off my staffing career. So ended up doing a little bit over $1.5 million to $2 million in building revenue, just building the non-medical side of the practice. Miss Dean was very instrumental in just helping me with the building blocks on understanding what client needs were, customer service. I can't say enough about how she helped start my career, and I've literally used that experience to propel me through all of the different avenues that I've had on in-house recruiting, because there's some things that you just don't understand unless you're on that side of the house.
It's so true. I mean, I fell into staffing or external recruiting as well when I first moved to New York City, just looking for a job, and, met a mentor, Jay Gulati, who, taught me the ropes. And it's so amazing to have an early mentor like that in your career to really show you where to go, what not to do, watch out for this, look out for that. Hey, here's an idea, right? And then, I even followed Jay to the next company. So it sounds like she may have been that mentor for you, which is fantastic. And then it sounds like then you moved into corporate. Now you're at TDECU. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the credit union there, and describe a little bit more, maybe the roles or the types of jobs you're filling for TDECU.
Yeah. So we're at a special time at TDECU. Kiera, she is our president of HR, and she's doing an amazing job of just navigating us through this time. We've got, some of you have seen on LinkedIn, we've got some M&A activity, as well as we've got some things going on with brand. And it's just to overall reach our member. We really want to have a strong footprint in the Houston area, as well as in the state of Texas. We're fourth largest, but, of course, we want to get to that number one spot. Absolutely. So that's in that process. And I'm getting the opportunity to put my stamp on the recruiting side of it. And so Honeit has been instrumental in just helping that and navigate through all of the different changes we've had through the pandemic, and just helping our not only our member experience, but our candidate experience, because it's just one of those vehicles that just makes us unique through the Honeit app. And it allows us to kind of process things and move things along very, very quickly.
Well, thank you, Darren. Well, you actually were one of the first adopters in Honeit of a lot of folks leverage kind of the voice of the candidate. How do you ask great questions during your interviews or screening calls with candidates and share those insights and sound bites with hiring teams to accelerate and streamline the process for candidates? But you were one of the first to actually jump on and dive into this concept of creating, job insights and job presentations, highlighting and focusing on the voice of the hiring manager and bringing
Mhm.
that to market, or embedding those sound bites from a hiring manager into job descriptions and job previews on your career site, right? Embedding those insights
Mhm.
on your career site, or when you're sourcing or trying to attract passive candidates. And so maybe you can
So,
unpack that, because you were leading the charge when it comes to authentic job presentations and bringing that voice of the hiring manager to candidates. Tell us a little bit more about how that got going.
so one of the things that is unique about choosing a credit union is credit unions are controlled by the member and they listen to the member, right? So, I have to mirror that when I'm recruiting. So, in mirroring that as I'm recruiting, I'm listening to my candidate and listening to the wants and needs that they have. So often we read a job description, and reading is one thing, but hearing it from the manager standpoint is a completely another thing. And so I just had a thought, wouldn't it be great if the manager can tell what's in between the job description that really needs to be done. And then, most people join, if you've been on any type of recruiting team, you understand that most people join managers. Very rarely is it they just join for the company being great, but they join managers and they get to know that manager and they want to work for that manager. And so they join the people part of it. And so to showcase the people, we have great people at TDECU, such as John Gallo, and we had Elizabeth, who took the time to necessarily be kind of our first showcase. We've got a ton of managers that want to actually do it going into 2025. They're interested in just seeing it, but to get the opportunity to work across aisles and bring this information forward. I mean, we had marketing, we had Leanne Benz back us up with marketing and put brand to it, and be able to post. And then our CIO jumped into it and reposted everything, right? And so his whole network saw it, and it blew up from there, and it made my job so easy. We have a young man that's there now based on what we did. And it took us literally only 3 weeks to fill that position from start to finish, which
Wow.
I can't say enough about that, but that was thanks to Honeit and thanks to your staff helping us put that together, and then all of the different departments that helped support. And kudos to Kiera because she gave me the autonomy to do those type of things, and that's what's unique about TDCU is TDCU lets you have that type of impact and autonomy, to kind of draw outside of the line sometimes. And they'll listen and they'll say okay, and then they'll take it forward. Michelle Asbell has been very instrumental in just giving me the opportunity to kind of promote some of my ideas.
Well, you have been pushing the limits. A lot of recruiters talk about innovation and talk about change, and you're a doer and you're putting your money and your work where your mouth is. And it's so fun
Right.
to see you pushing the limits. But yeah, I think that's interesting you were talking about, because it's people think about it's like hard to create a job preview or whatnot. And we're like, no, no, no. It's just like you're talking to a hiring manager as you would about the job at the beginning of the process, the kickoff call or the intake call. But when you ask some good questions, you can now do stuff with those great answers. But what I think you were talking about too is that was a little that was new and different. And so you wanted to run it past marketing, you wanted to run it past legal, you just wanted to make sure, hey, sharing a few sound bites about a VP of marketing telling us about why this marketing manager job is so exciting, or what's unique about TDCU. Is that okay? And it's like, it's strange to think that is so
Different,
wild,
right?
right? Because it's like, why aren't we showcasing amazing and diverse hiring managers to attract more amazing and diverse candidates? It just seems it makes a lot of sense. But you made it happen by going through marketing, getting legal approved, making this a program or project beyond just recruiting and HR, because you needed the
Mhm.
buy-in. So I celebrate that. A lot of people would maybe give up if it's like, wait, what? Or we can't do that, or that's not on brand, or what? It's like, no, you had the conversations internally to get all of those stakeholders aligned to recognize the value of the voice of the hiring manager and how that will, to your point, attract that right candidate, get them on
Right.
your calendar, get them through the process in 3 weeks, which is that's a really great time to hire when you think about that whole process of from
Yeah.
kickoff call to offer accepted. Maybe you could talk a little about, because I know that this is not the only way in which you've got multiple folks in the company together to do innovative things. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the initiative you shared with me about the voice of the member, or how that project came to be in that innovation summit.
So I was thinking so let me start from the beginning. So we have what we call a sheesh has brought the hackathon to TDECU. And what the hackathon is you present a list of hurdles that a company may have, topics, and you get everybody together in the company to solve them. And so they get in groups and they select a group of 5 or 4, and they get in groups and they decide to tackle different hurdles that we may come across as we're trying to service our member. And to Ashish's credit, we've solved some problems that may have been there for years, or may have been some issues that we've had, and they've been solved, where it would have took a team, a couple months to solve it. We solved it in a couple weeks. So we had 17 teams participate, and we finished in the top 4. And we had 5 departments that were represented on my team. And we focused on growth, deposit growth, some of those factors. But the way we went about it was, how do we enhance our member journey experience? And how do we focus on making our member feel valued, and also introducing them to products that not only they need, but they want, right? Yeah, because it's one thing to have a data set out there that says, hey, this is what these people should need, but it's another thing that says, hey, Nick actually wants to learn more about X, right? And so how do you do that?
And
So
these could be
Honeit
products or services across the credit union you're talking about in terms of
across the credit,
mortgages or different vehicle
yeah,
instruments. Okay, good.
across the credit union, and insights is a huge topic among credit unions and among the financial space in general. And so how do we get to that point to where we're servicing our member and we're hearing from the member in real time, and we're showing that value without just sending them a survey, right? That's the normal way of kind of getting those analytics. Well, Honeit allows us the opportunity to make that person a valued member and say, hey, we want to hear from you. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you chose this product? Can you tell us a little bit about what background you come from? We'd love to feature you on our article or our podcast, or something that we have that we're developing, and just promote the fact that, hey, we value you as a member of TDECU. And most people, if they go home and they go to the dinner table and they say, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast tomorrow, they get excited, right? And then it's about TDECU. And so now we've entered their dinner table and we've entered their night conversation. And that's an amazing prospect for any financial institution, because most of the time we're not in those conversations. It's very, very hard. So you want to create little mini brand ambassadors. And what better way to do it than through Honeit services?
Wow. And you're talking about, which again, it sounds crazy, right? But talk
Right.
to your members. Like, talk to your members. So it's,
Right.
again, survey tools to try to get some insights. But I don't know, unless you're incentivizing them or saying, hey, we'll give you a $20 Starbucks card. I don't know. Most folks don't like surveys, or maybe they don't take them super serious. But in your case, you're saying, no, we've now have a mechanism to like reach out to a percentage of our membership, or maybe they opt in somehow, book a 15-minute call with them, talk to
Mm-hmm.
the members and ask them a series of structured questions that are pre-approved by the research or the analytics team, and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, how did you come to TDCU? What do you like? What was your last uh, you know product or vehicle, that instrument that you worked with here? And why do you like TDCU? Answers to those 4 simple questions are now insights that your market research team can use, your branding, your marketing team. And it sounds like you've even then been taking some of those snippets or sound bites and then posting them on socials. And you're now leveraging the voice of the member to tell
Mhm.
the story and attract more members. I mean, there's so much packed in there, but again, it's just a quick call, right? It's just a
Yep,
conversation.
just a conversation. And, to be honest with you, when people ask me about I always ask them, you know, AI is great, but how do you humanize it?
Hmm.
What are we doing in the financial industry to humanize the technology that we're getting so we can guide us forward? So that's much more bigger than talent. And I I dip my toe in a lot of different things. And so I kind of wear, some different hats from time to time. But because I love to study like the industry as a whole and understand where we're going, I really believe that voice and video is the future.
Well, it's amazing, Darren, to see that the projects that you're doing within TA to help companies recruit, hire, and scale, applying similar programs or projects to other parts of the company are now helping you recruit and attract more members, which is more revenue, which is more
Yeah.
business. I mean, what we're talking about here, it's not that dissimilar. I mean, we've got market research teams that use Honeit for the very similar things. It's like, hey, we want to talk to 100 Tesla drivers, and we want to ask them a series of questions, and we want to extract those human insights, and we want to share that with the research team and the marketing team, the brand. It sounds like your success in this program, you're now working with the CMO and they're very interested in this voice of the membership program or the voice of the hiring manager. I mean, this is now a cross company initiative, it sounds like. So
Yes, yes. It's been a joy to work with Shay in regards to this and Hugo Lagarde. I mean, they just do an amazing job of just guiding us forward with all of the different partnerships and the things that we've been introduced to. And then, you know, what company allows you to just go in the CMO's office and say, "Hey, I have an idea"? It's not very many, right? How often are you able to walk in a VP's door and just say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you guys think about it?" And only at TDECU are you kind of allowed that platform to do that. And that's one of the things that I love about our company culture is, they want you to have an idea, and they want they want to see you showcase it. Because the people that solve problems are the people that they value.
it's interesting, like recruitment marketing, employment branding, these are pretty big buckets with a lot of companies, and there's teams focused on this kind of thing. But it's always interesting that it's hard or tedious or expensive to like send in a video crew and get the hiring manager to do this or like, right? But you want those voices and those stories to bubble up. I think that's where, the simplicity is with just when you do an intake call or talk to a hiring manager, or we're actually seeing applications of Honeit now with internal mobility,
Mhm.
retention, like,
Right.
and HR teams are starting to recognize, just like talking to a member to see how they're doing, to check in, to showcase their story. Talk to an employee, get your top 10%, do a 15-minute call. Hey, how you doing? I know you've been in this role for 2 years. You still want to do what you told us 2 years ago? Oh, you've changed your mind? Let's see if we can introduce you to the VP of product over here if you are thinking about a lateral move or a career change. Let's have you do that internally, keep you here, leverage all of that industry or company domain expertise that you have, and so that you don't find that job outside the company. Like, it's just, I think this, to your point around AI and technology, and there's so much you can do. There's a lot you can also do if you just talk to your employees, talk to your
Mhm.
hiring managers, talk to your candidates, talk to your customers, right? And so
Yep.
maybe we could segue a little bit there, and because you brought up the term AI too, which I think even just limited to say TA and talent acquisition and recruiting, there seems to be a bit of a this with high touch and high quality versus automation and AI. There seems to be a blend in some cases. Where does Darren, what are you thinking about like the next, where we're at today, or say the next couple of years in terms of automation, AI, and then that kind of human experience?
Well, it's a huge topic, but I think in 5 to 10 years, you will see it being used on an everyday basis. the people who are going to do well are going to be the people who still humanize that part of the process. So, how do we talk to our people? How do we provide member experience? If AI is selecting the resume, how are we vetting? What are we doing to make sure that we bubble up the right person to the manager? All of those are human things that you still need to add a part of the process and drive us forward. If you solely depend on AI to do certain things, it's only going to give you what's inputted, right? So it's front end system. So on the back end, how are you deciphering, is this data good, is it bad, what are we really doing with it, is it helping us, are these hires helping us? I think where you'll see a lot of it, a lot of AI being introduced and used is in the bulk industries where you need you know 30 manufacturers on an assembly line, or you need a warehouse or something of that nature where you can do a recorded line and you can have them, interview, have the AI bot interview with a list of questions. I think you understand that. But for some of the things where the companies are guiding, you're using them for pivotal roles as far as, like a VP or a director, you know, you really need to get those scenarios and dive in to make sure that you're getting the right type of hire. And I think there's no way to get around having the human touch on that part because people people are unpredictable. You can only put so much data to it, but people are unpredictable. Things happen, life happens. And so it's always a 50-50 chance. And that's the fun part about being in recruiting, because sometimes you're going to be right and depending on your data. And then sometimes there's just going to be situations that are out of your control. And then how do you pivot?
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's interesting because some of the high volume stuff, I like to think that, yeah, you can't interview 500 people for one job, but why did we not filter those 500 on the application step or ask three
Right.
pre-screening questions to whittle that down to 20? Like either you have the certification or you don't, you're available these shifts or you're not.
Right.
Like some of that stuff could just be simplified in a few extra questions on the application. And then you don't have 500 people and you think you have to talk to 500 people. So I still kind of challenge the high volume stuff. And I'm going, if you're in a company or an industry with a ton of turnover, right? And that's why it becomes so high volume is that nobody sticks around for more than 4 months. Like, I think you start to think about, well, why are people leaving? Fix some of those problems or make it twice as human as the executive roles.
Right.
And if people come in and they talk to a human and are treated well and have better benefits, then like maybe they'll stick around for 4 months and you won't have
Yep.
as much of a turn. So I almost think like we're almost doubling down on automation in some areas when if turnover is an issue, let's see how we're treating those humans, and maybe we can solve it in some other ways rather than unhumanizing their first experience to the company, right? If you
Right.
if a company feels if you from the beginning of the application process, if you feel like your application and your interview process is time suck for the company, just imagine that tone for the rest of your employee life cycle with that organization.
Absolutely.
If you don't have the time
Absolutely.
to treat me as a human on the interview process, I think that speaks volumes of what it's like to actually be an employee and how you're going to be treated as an employee for the rest. So I think companies really still need to look at what their application and interview process is, because that is a peek behind the curtain of how your company operates. If it's
Absolutely.
inefficient, if it's redundant, if it's not informative, if you're putting recruiters on the front lines that can't explain an opportunity, that all shines. You're setting your talent bar and expectations for the employee. So I hear you, Darren. I think there's opportunities for AI in certain buckets, but I'm also just like, man, AI, it's so easy to go so far with it that we've got to just be
Mhm.
a little bit mindful with the human resources side of things.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You have to humanize these processes. I think where AI becomes efficient is in the initial, evaluating of the resume, the 7 to 9 seconds that a recruiter is supposed to be taking to evaluate a resume and then come back and look at it, can you say that this resume is a 93% match or a 98% match, and then be confident in that data that comes over, and then make your decision on, okay, does this person fit the role or not fit the role, and helping recruiters make that decision. I do still feel like the interview process itself needs to be fairly human, because you're dealing with humans, and having that personal touch makes the process so much better. So I have, like I said, I don't feel like AI is something that you shouldn't necessarily embrace, but I feel like like anything else, everything kind
Yeah.
of has its bucket,
Yeah,
has
you
its
can't ignore it at this stage. I
right.
mean, it's like here to stay, and I agree with that sentiment. There's definitely themes of that, tones of that online, but it's interesting. We started to see. I don't know if you saw the video this week where the AI candidate was doing a interview with the AI interviewer. Because it's like you could throw an AI interview at a candidate. Well, they threw an AI avatar candidate right back and it was literally an AI candidate interviewing an AI robot, and they were going back and forth.
Mm,
So
wow,
yeah, it's
that is interesting.
pretty interesting application where it's like candidates like we can two can play at this game. You throw me a bot, I'll throw my bot right back at you, company.
Right.
So I think that's going to be interesting too, where to your point, the resume scoring or matching through algorithms powered by AI, let's say, if candidates now can instantly upload a resume that's optimized for a job description, it takes them 2 seconds to do that.
Mhm.
I think we're going to see a lot more 90% matches. And then what? And then what?
And then how do you figure it out? So again, it still comes back to that human touch. So I think, like I said, it's no wrong or right answer for or against. I think time will necessarily like
Yeah.
tell, but I do think humans will always be a part of this process, and human resources. I just happen to feel that way strongly about that, because I mean, I love working with people. I really do. I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, that's what makes our jobs so fun too, is that we've always been trying to kind of blend human high touch with technology, whether it's new sourcing tools, new, CRMs or APSs.
Right.
I think this is kind of introducing this new area of interview intelligence really opens up some doors to think about, what's next and how we can do our jobs better, how we can deliver more value to hiring teams. And you're doing a lot of that, Darren. So it's super exciting to hear what you're doing. Any final takeaways from you on kind of either the future of recruiting or maybe the future of hiring or the future of work, kind of broader thoughts there?
Yeah, just I think the future of hiring is going to go along the lines of voice and video. How do we grab people's attention? Um, Attention is shorter and shorter every day with the new avenues like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all of those things that are grabbing your attention for 10 or 15 seconds. So attention is getting shorter. So attracting candidates is becoming tougher and becoming a little bit more difficult, because you're trying to figure out all the different avenues to get in front of them. So I think, just based on the direction that we're going, the more voice and video that you can add to your job description, to your journal, your blog that you necessarily have, gives you those opportunities to be unique for now, because I'm sure it'll shift again. It'll come out with something new, but gives you the opportunity to shift and be unique and figure out how to set yourself apart from the competition. So, companies that, I think are going to attract most of the viable candidates are going to be those who gravitate towards spending the time in voice and video. You've even seen your mortgage companies now doing that with their sales employees. They're getting people to talk about their mortgage team and how they joined the mortgage team. One of the things that we did with within Workdays, we were able to pre-record a welcome video for our CEO Isaac, that just welcomes people necessarily to the company, to just add that personal touch as it goes. So I just think voice and video is kind of the way of the future, and that's going to be how we get in front of the right type of candidate, because they're going to be paying attention.
Well, on that note, Darren, thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to see what you do next. I mean, you're to your point, voice of the candidate, you're already optimizing. Voice of the hiring manager, we're working on. Voice of the, the customer, right, or the
Yeah.
member, you're already leveraging at TDCU. Maybe voice of the employee is next, but I'm really curious to see what's next for you and what's next for TDCU. So
Yeah,
thank you for
absolutely.
joining us this week, everybody. Darren Hendricks from TDCU.
All right. See you later.